We really need to talk about what's happening in the enterprise data room. I mean, companies are spending, well, just aggressively on generative AI.
It's almost unfathomable, the figures we're talking about. The MIT Nanda report we've been looking at estimates $30 to $40 billion have been poured into these initiatives.
Globally.
Globally, yes.
Mm.
And that investment figure is staggering, but the return, well, it's almost non-existent for the vast majority.
And that's the paradox, right? The report finds that a staggering 95% of organizations are getting zero measurable P&L return.
Zero.
In a world where every single CEO is on stage talking about AI transformation, how can 95% of the effort just result in nothing? Nothing that actually hits the bottom line.
That contrast, that stark split, is what we're calling the Gen AI divide. On one side, you've got the 5%, the winners, they're seeing millions in real value.
Then on the other side
is everyone else. They're stuck with stalled pilots and, like you said, no demonstrable P&L impact.
And just so we're clear, when we say P&L return, we're talking about the stuff that really matters to a business, right? Like increasing revenue or actually cutting operational costs.
Exactly. Not just, my employee can write an email a little bit faster.
Right.
And the most crucial finding from this deep dive is what's really driving that divide. It's not about having the fanciest model or even grappling with regulation.
So what is it?
It's the organization's approach and the system's learning capability. If your system can't learn, if it can't adapt and integrate, you fail. It's that simple.
So our mission today is to really unpack this failure. We're using the State of AI in Business 2025 report from MIT Nanda, which is based on some really rigorous research. We're talking dozens of interviews, surveys with senior leaders, and an analysis of over 300 public AI rollouts.
And we're going to show you where the money is going, why the tech is failing at this enterprise level, and, how the winners are doing it differently.
Okay, so let's start where most companies are stuck. On the wrong side of that divide. High adoption, but absolutely no transformation.
Right. We know individual adoption is high. The report says 80% of organizations have, explored tools like ChatGPT or Copilot.
And 40% have them deployed company-wide, which sounds great for quick tasks.
It is great for that. But those are individual productivity bumps. They're sort of nibbling at the edges of the organization, not transforming the core.
A better email doesn't change how you manufacture a car.
Exactly. That requires a systemic change.
So the moment of truth comes when a company tries to graduate from that general tool to something more customized, enterprise grade. This is that pilot to production chasm. How bad is the failure rate here?
It's catastrophic. Of the organizations they surveyed, 60% evaluated these custom or vendor-sold systems.
Okay.
Of those, only 20% even moved to a pilot. But here's the jaw dropper. Only 5% of those pilots ever reached full production.
Hold on. So for every 100 of these enterprise projects that get started, 95 are failing to launch.
They're failing to achieve systemic deployment. It's a truly shocking lack of conversion.
What's the fundamental cause? Is the technology just not there yet?
The interview suggests it's less about immaturity and more about fit. The main reasons they cited were all operational, brittle workflows.
Things that break easily.
Right. And a severe lack of contextual learning. And just, a total misalignment with how people actually do their jobs. One leader called it buying a beautifully tailored suit for a robot that still needs to wear the office uniform.
It sounds like they're trying to shove a static tool into a really dynamic human process. And if 95% of these things are stalling out, we should see that lack of transformation across the whole economy.
And we do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, despite all this experimentation, structural change is minimal. Out of 9 major sectors they looked at, only 2 tech and media and telecom show any real meaningful disruption.
That means 7 massive industries are just stuck in the lab. They're spending the money, running pilots, but they haven't found their Amazon disrupting retail moment with Gen AI.
Exactly. And that gap, the gap between the huge investment and zero disruption, that is the divide made manifest.
Yeah.
And it leads us right to the core reason why, the learning gap.
Let's dig into this user paradox. The same people who love using consumer AI, the chat CPTs of the world, are the ones rejecting the custom tools their own company builds for them. Why are they so skeptical?
Well, because their expectations have been set really high by good consumer tech. They find the internal tools, and this is a, quote, brittle, over-engineered, or misaligned.
So it feels clunky.
It feels clunky. And when they ask users and sponsors about the top barriers to scale, number 1 was a predictable reluctance to adopt new tools. But number two is the really critical one. Model output quality concerns.
Wait, I don't get that. If the underlying large language model is state-of-the-art, why are users worried about the quality?
Because for a user, quality isn't about some technical benchmark. It's about reliability and context. The real quality concern is simple. The tool keeps making the same mistakes. It doesn't remember anything about the client or the project.
Ah, so it's not that it can't generate good sentences, it's that it fails to generate relevant, context-aware sentences.
Precisely. We call this the trust cliff for complex tasks. Look, for simple stuff, summarizing a call, drafting an email, 70% of users now prefer AI. AI has won that battle.
Okay.
But when you move to complex projects, multi-week analysis, client management humans dominate by a 9-to-1 margin. 90% prefer human.
Well, of course. If you're working on something high stakes for weeks, you can't have a tool that resets its brain to 0 every hour.
That's the core deficiency. There was a lawyer they interviewed who said she loved brainstorming with generic AI, but hated using it for real work because it doesn't retain knowledge of client preferences or learn from previous edits.
The system just forgets what you did 5 minutes ago.
Yes. It forces you to manually feed it context for every single session. Users are demanding a system that's persistent, that accumulates knowledge, that gets smarter. They don't want a calculator, they want a coworker.
And this structural problem, this lack of memory, is what the report says can be solved by what they call agentic AI. But before we get to the solution, we have to talk about where the money is actually going and this bizarre shadow economy.
The shadow AI economy is maybe the most human finding in the whole report. So officially, only 40% of companies have bought an official LLM subscription.
So corporate adoption is pretty low.
It is. But workers from over 90% of the surveyed companies said they regularly use personal AI tools like their own paid ChatGPT account for work tasks, often daily.
That's incredible. So individuals are crossing the divide on their own dime with their personal credit cards because the enterprise tools just aren't working for them.
It's created this massive shadow feedback loop. Employees now have this intuitive sense of what good AI feels like. Responsive, flexible, and they're not tolerant of the clunky, brittle tools IT is trying to push on them.
And all the while, the executive budget doesn't seem to be going to the places with the real P&L impact. So where is that $30 to $40 billion going?
Well, if you think about a hypothetical $100 Gen AI budget, around 70% of that is going to really visible front-of-house functions, sales and marketing.
Things like smart lead scoring, personalized content.
Exactly. Anything that drives the top line.
But why the huge skew toward sales and marketing?
Because the metrics are easy. You can track demo volume, response times, conversion rates. It's flashier. The returns feel immediate, even if they're small. But this creates a huge high ROI blind spot.
It's diverting money from the real transformative stuff, which is in the back office.
We're talking finance, procurement, operations. Yeah, they're less glamorous,
Yeah.
but that's where millions in cost savings are just sitting there waiting.
And the report found this, right?
Absolutely. The highest documented cost savings came directly from back office automation. I mean, we are talking about business process outsourcing elimination BPO saving between $2 and $10 million annually for advanced adopters. They also saw a 30% drop in what they were paying external creative agencies.
So the fastest path to a real P&L return is automating tasks that were already outsourced or highly repetitive, but 70% of the money is going to marketing content.
Precisely. And this investment bias is a key reason the Gen AI divide is so persistent. Companies are, they're optimizing the flashy 5% of their workflow instead of transforming the essential 95% of their operations.
Okay, we have thoroughly established the problem. Let's pivot to the winning playbook. How are the successful 5% getting across this divide?
The first thing is they're shifting their strategy. They're moving from we have to build everything ourselves to we need to partner strategically. And the data on this is, well, it's totally unequivocal.
It's that clear.
It's very clear. Strategic partnerships, where they buy customized, learning-capable tools, were twice as likely to reach full deployment. They succeeded about 67% of the time. Internally built tools, only about 33%.
So the whole myth that you need to be an AI native and build it all yourself is it's just not true. Internal builds are failing at twice the rate of buying.
It's a resource and focus issue. The successful vendors in this space, they focus on a narrow scope, simple execution. They target small, high-value use cases like voice AI for call summaries or automating document intake.
And crucially, they build systems that learn.
They build systems designed to learn from feedback and retain context. They solve that learning gap by design, which is what 66% of executives were demanding.
And the most successful buyers, the enterprises crossing the divide, they're acting differently too. They aren't treating vendors like, a generic sauce provider.
No, they act more like a BPO client. They demand deep customization. And they benchmark the tools not on complex model metrics, but on real outcomes. Time saved, cost eliminated.
You benchmark the result, not the tech itself. That makes so much more sense.
And this is key. The successful companies source their initiatives from the bottom up. They empower the frontline managers, the people who actually feel the pain points, to find the solution. This guarantees a good fit, and it speeds up adoption.
And when they finally choose a partner, it's not just about the product features. It's about trust.
Absolutely. With so much risk of buying shelfware, they lean heavily on social proof. The most common discovery methods are existing vendor partnerships and informal peer recommendations. They're relying on relationships to cut through the noise.
Which brings us to the future, the required path across the divide. The report points to agentic AI as the next step. What does that actually look like?
So agentic AI are systems that have persistent memory, they learn from what they do, and they can use other tools to get complex jobs done without constant human input.
So it's not just a single prompt and response. An agent could, say, start a client interaction, track their preferences over weeks, update the CRM, and use all that learned knowledge to draft the final proposal.
That is the promise. And this is all moving us toward what the report calls the agentic web. Think of it as an interconnected layer of these learning systems, all using common protocols to coordinate and communicate with each other autonomously, like specialized AI workers collaborating for you.
That sounds like a pretty fundamental shift. And the report says the window for enterprises to lock in these key relationships is closing fast.
The urgency is extremely high. They estimate an 18-month horizon. The reason is simple. If these systems are learning from your unique company data, they're creating switching costs that compound every single month.
So every day your competitor system is learning and getting smarter, yours is falling further behind.
Right.
Let's touch on the workforce impact. Is this push towards agents causing mass layoffs right now?
Not broad-based, no. The displacement is selective. It's concentrated in those historically outsourced functions, like customer support or admin processing. The advanced companies are reporting 5 to 20% reductions specifically in those areas.
So the ROI is coming from replacing external contractors and agency fees, not necessarily core internal staff.
That's where the immediate high-value savings are, yes. However, sectors like tech and media do anticipate reduced hiring volumes over the next couple of years. And the universal requirement now is AI literacy. It's becoming a fundamental skill for every new hire.
So to summarize our deep dive, the path forward for that 95% is a fundamental strategic shift.
They have to stop investing in static, generic tools that forget everything. They need to pivot to strategic partnerships, focus on adaptive, learning-capable systems, and listen to their frontline experts. And they need to focus laser-like on that back-office ROI.
The report leaves us with a really provocative thought that just underscores the urgency of this whole Gen AI divide.
Think about this. The organizations investing in systems that learn from their data are creating switching costs that compound monthly. So if you're still just exploring static tools today, what happens to your competitive position in 6 months? In 6 months, your rival's AI system is 6 months smarter, 6 months more integrated, and now it's functionally impossible for you to replace. That gap is the Gen AI divide, and it is widening every single day.